Today's guest is Dan G, co-founder of Shift Control and previously the CTO at Express VPN, where he helped scale the company past 700 people. Dan knows how the enterprise world works, and that's exactly what got him. Early on at Shift Control, they became an AWS partner. And on paper, it was obvious, right? The biggest cloud on earth, a marketplace, a co-sell motion, instant credibility with buyers. What they actually got was a mountain of work and a return of almost zero. Because at the time, AWS couldn't issue GST compliant receipts. So Shift Control was actually forced to register for GST themselves, which meant putting up a guarantee to the government, cash they never really wanted to spend and won't see again for maybe another year or two. Now, of course, AWS has fixed that receipt problem, but only July this year. And so here's the kicker. The deal sizes were never big enough for AWS to be the right channel in the first place. And nobody ran that math before signing up. Today, we're talking about the Partnership Mirage, the compliance bills hiding behind a logo, and why early cycles are the one thing a founder can never buy back. Dan.
Hey, thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome. When you were, in the early days, so what did you think becoming an AWS partner was going to kind of unlock for Shift Control?
Well, it's kind of funny how you get into it, right? So early on, you join the AWS startup program, you get AWS credits, you get a startup account manager. That account manager says, hey, you want to become an AWS partner, you're building a product, we have a marketplace. The marketplace does have its benefits. There are really cool things. If you don't want to onboard to Stripe, for example, you can actually transact and sell through AWS Marketplace, and they have people check out. There are some enticing things. There's also the co-sell motion. We got actually introduced to a accelerated program for becoming an AWS partner. So instead of for a lot of companies, it can take anywhere from 12 months to 18 months to complete the process. And this was a 6-week accelerated program. Previously, I had helped some other companies go through this. So I kind of knew what was involved, technically at least, and what needed to be done. So I was fairly confident that we were in the right place to be able to do it. So that's kind of how we got into it. And we said, look, it might not be that big of a lift. The selling motion through AWS might be interesting. Let's give it a shot. And that's kind of how it came about.
Time out, guys. Lots of you are watching. Lots of you are learning from the founder fuck-ups that we've all gone through. But please do me one little teeny favor and subscribe so that we can keep growing the channel and get more great founders on. Back to the episode.
So it sounds more like it was the whole ecosystem that kind of drew you in, like you said, with the accelerator program. And of course, you've got the account manager pitching and selling all this various other ecosystems that they have. But you were looking at it as how can it help our sales motion at the end of the day? It was like, how do we use this to build pipeline?
Yeah, because like when you're on the AWS marketplace, you can actually then have people buy through AWS, and if they have a large commitment to AWS, it can draw down some of their commitment. So there's some benefits to the customer. So there are ways that it could be beneficial. It's just that in the end, you really need to have a sales team that really works on this motion specifically and looks for those kind of companies. And you have to have enough deal size for it to matter to bring down that spend for those companies that want to do it, right?
Okay.
There's a little bit of a friction there. But if you do have the right GTM and through maybe partners or direct that are more enterprise people that have a decent AWS spend, then it can be a really powerful thing because AWS does co-sell.
Yeah.
And so they'll take they get their salespeople get a commission for selling your product, even though you don't give them any commission yourself, because your product essentially gets more compute onto AWS and more consumption.
Exactly.
That's kind of the idea, right?
Yeah. Okay. No, that does make a lot of sense. And so you were kind of looking at, okay, we can get access to some of their big user accounts or usage accounts, which could perhaps unlock some fast revenue for us. Did that reality kind of happen? Like once you're in, did they require too much of you to actually get the partnership moving or?
I would say that it works kind of like most channel partner relationships where you have to, you deal reg a little bit, or you put qualified leads into the system. Then you can actually talk to an AWS account manager for that qualified lead to see if there's any way you can work together to try to make a deal happen. So that part is okay, but it requires more of a dedicated resource in your team to be focused on that kind of selling motion. And I think that's for us, which was the drawback, is that we were just a very small team. We were 3 people. There's no way we were going to assign somebody to not full time, but to really focus on just this motion, unless it proved to be super, super like good.
Yeah.
So
That makes
what we
sense.
found is that mostly like the deal size needed to be a bit bigger. So if we were selling $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 licenses a year, then it makes a lot of sense, because then AWS is also more incentivized to sell it and help you go sell. But
so I guess
all deal sizes, it's not as easy.
And then to do it properly, it becomes quite difficult because, like you said, you need a BD essentially who's literally an AWS BD, right?
Yes, you need a BD function.
Inside the ecosystem, they're working with the account manager. They're trying to motivate the account manager. Like channel sales is required. You've got to motivate your channel partner. So that's a lot of sales motion.
I will say that the AWS team is quite good. Like in Singapore, especially, they are very on it. They try to help you out. They'll meet with you, try to give you resources. But in the end, you've got to do a lot of self-serve. They'll help you through the process, help explain stuff to you. They'll even introduce you to other partners that you maybe can resell through or partner with. But there's still work, and you still have to have the right types of product that really fit into that marketplace well. Especially if you have a product that deploys AWS compute.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're part of your go-to-market motion and sales motion is to onboard like a bunch of ECS containers or something like that for that customer, then it makes a lot of sense, because mathematically it makes a ton of sense for them.
Then the commissions are looking quite sexy for the AWS guy, and they're like, let me push you. And what else did the partnership end up requiring from you? Because obviously we've got to really hunt within this, but we also sort of talked about the GST issue. So I just imagine there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of admin that kind of started getting sucked out of your small team in the early stage of the business, where you probably want to like do your own sales, build your own product, focus on your own business. Yeah.
One area where we were lucky is we had already done our ISO 27001 and SOC 2 audits. And so we were compliant. So there's an entire questionnaire and section of work that you have to do that can be bypassed if you already have those. So we didn't have to do that piece, but we still had to do the AWS well-architected review, and basically show AWS how everything's architected. It has to be in a specific format and answer some other compliance questions. All that takes more time than it should, especially because generating the diagrams for that can be annoying, because you have to basically do like an AWS infrastructure diagram. And it's a bit of back and forth.
It's a lot of paperwork.
It's a lot of process, and it's quite manual. Because you'd think, like, my argument to them was like, look, we're running this on AWS. Why can't you just look at the account and see? But no, we still had to create a diagram, and they know that this is like a shortfall. And I think maybe now with more AI coming into it, that maybe will become solved. But I think the biggest issue for us was the GST registration. To become an AWS partner in Singapore, as a Singapore company, you needed to be GST registered, because they didn't have a way to do the GST receipts and stuff like that. So basically anything that you sold through AWS in Singapore needed to be a private offer, and we had to take care of the GST on the back end, which is why we were required to be GST registered. And if you know, in Singapore, like typically you don't have to be GST registered until you make $1 million ARR in Singapore. Which obviously at an early stage we were not at. No. And so you have to do this thing called a voluntary GST registration. And that process then required us to have a local bank, because we didn't have a local bank account. We had digibanks, because local bank accounts for smaller businesses are much harder to open. So we needed to open a local bank account, which then allowed us to do this GST guarantee that they required. So we needed it for 2 reasons. Number one, in order to pay in and out the GST, you need to have bidirectional gyro, and bidirectional gyro is only supported by local banks.
Okay, so like DBS or something like that.
OCPC,
Air Wallets or Wise.
Right. It won't work with Air Wallets or Aspire, unfortunately. So that was a technical requirement from GST. But then also when we applied, the IRS came back and said, look, for companies like yours, we need a guarantee. It's like a loan guarantee almost. So we had to give something like 20K Sing, basically put it into an escrow account with the bank that gets held for 3 years. And so it's locked up, and early on when you're a self-funded startup, that kind of cash is critical.
I wanted to ask about that, because if you're self-funded, So this is good. It's come out of your bank. You would have preferred to have spent that on growth or product development or obviously on your own business. And now it's just sucked up. Did any of this at the time feel like some like shit? This is a lot of effort. Like, who's taking, what are we losing by doing this? Focusing on building the bank, all the paperwork that goes into it, getting the GST stuff, and then we've still got a hump within the AWS. Did anyone at some point go, maybe this is a bit much? Or were we kind of like, we're trapped in the motion. We've committed and we've just got a lot of shit to get done and we're going to get it done?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of both. We asked ourselves the question, like, is this too much? Is this the right time? Should we just do it? Ultimately, you need a local bank account anyways for some local payroll stuff at some point. Like, you kind of think like, well, should we just pull this trigger now and deal with it? Or at some point we're gonna have to deal with it anyway. So we just decided to deal with it up front. But yeah, I mean, the question definitely came up as like, is this too much work? But then you already have the sunk cost fallacy, which is like, we've got a lot of time invested. We got towards the end of the process and all that was left to do with this GST thing. So,
and did you know about that GST thing before you had committed? Did you know that it was going to be a $20,000 deposit?
No, we didn't know the cost of it. We kind of understood the GST registration requirement, but we didn't know how hard it would be to actually get done.
Yeah. And so you're already kind of gone through a lot of work, like you said, with the diagrams, like a lot of sunk costs.
Basically everything was done except for that. Yeah.
And then you get a call, not a call, but you get told, oh, by the way, your business, we need a guarantee, $20,000. That must have been a bit of a kick up the arse. What the hell? That must be quite frustrating to be kind of the rug pulled out under you kind of thing.
And there's no like remediation. There's no escalation path.
Yeah.
So it is what it is, and I have, some friends in IMDA and other agencies, and I tell them my experience and my story, to kind of let them know this is maybe the best way that's for small businesses to try to operate. And, because in general, Singapore does make it easy to operate, but there are certain things that can be hard.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, giving the feedback, I think, is important, and saying, look, this is the trouble we had.
Singapore very good at listening.
They are, yeah.
Actually, but no market's perfect, and you're registering really early for GST, so it's probably not a very common issue. The
good thing in the end is we can claw back the GST we pay in.
Yeah.
But so there's some benefit, but yeah, we also have to make sure everything's GST invoiced, and there's the GST submission process with the CorpSec and the accounting firms, and there's a lot more overhead to running GST for sure.
You're kind of in this now. We've done all the paperwork. We've got to do the BD motion. We've got the cash in the bank in the escrow, and now you've got to start working it, right? You've got to make this channel work for you. When did you realize the ROI might scale on the zero end? That something that you first imagined when you first started working with AWS?
As part of the 6-week program, is it 6 weeks? Anyway, it's short, right? It's like 3-month program. It's a very short program. As part of that accelerated program, we went to certain workshops with the AWS where they kind of really explained in more detail how the seller motion works. And I think during those workshops, I got a more clear picture of like the reality of, like obviously AWS doesn't sell for you unless they have an incentive to sell for you. Not that I thought they were going to do anything magical, but you kind of get the reality of how it all works. So, and then, you have to basically register deals, and then you have to close a certain amount of deals to get to a certain level. And then kind of you get moved up to the next phase, and the next phase where you get more co-marketing support, and you get, all these other things. So, I think it was fairly early on where we realized trying to push people through AWS that are smaller businesses just to be able to say we closed the deal through AWS maybe isn't the easiest.
Okay. So actually, when you were motivated to drive your customers through AWS, not necessarily because AWS was the right path or the best path, but because you needed to go up those tiers so that you could unlock the real benefits of AWS.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, you don't actually need to close them in AWS Marketplace. You can do it outside. Obviously, they prefer inside, but you can register someone in their little opportunity pipeline thing, and then say the deal was won, and it still counts as a deal won, even though it's sold outside, because ultimately they still get AWS increase of consumption of resources, right?
As long as AWS are winning, they're happy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but still, like to push things into the AWS sales pipeline and then go talk to the account managers and stuff like that. What the account managers can give you is essentially maybe some insights into that organization, maybe some other connection points. For that, it's really good.
Yeah.
But if you already have those and you're just trying to close the deal, there's not that much they can do unless they can give you like a discount for something else or credits, or so you can somehow sweeten the deal. But at our deal size, typically it wasn't worth it for them.
And because obviously what we're talking about here really is a sales strategy via a channel, AWS. And so did any real deals ever come out of the channel? When I say
Not
real
out
deals,
of the
what's
channel, not sourced by them. Definitely not sourced by them. Which I understand because we never made it to the higher tiers where they would actually assign more of a dedicated salesperson. I think your product needs to be the type of product that lends itself well to those deal sizes and that type of motion for those types of enterprise companies. So if your product isn't like that, then like if you're doing basically product-led growth motion to smaller businesses, like AWS channel probably isn't the right one to start with. Yeah.
Was that something you were trying to do, product-led growth?
We've always been trying to do product-led growth, but the reality is, founder-led sales is the way you start, no matter what. And you hope to be able to have a good enough product that at some point
You want to get to that stage.
Yeah.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's always going to be like for the first few years, it's always going to be founder-led sales for sure.
So obviously the channel wasn't producing many deals, but would you say it was making your deal flow, your sales cycle, your sales process a little bit faster, slightly improved conversion rate because we were within the AWS ecosystem?
I would say it gave us some credibility.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of credibility. You can tell people you're an AWS partner. You've gone through at least with AWS partner badge, you say that you've gone through some security reviews, your architecture is well done, and a few other things. So I think that is a benefit. You get some free SEO from a marketplace listing, which is also good, essentially. So it's not a bad thing. It's just you have to weigh the investment versus the ROI a bit and decide whether that's the right time for you and if the product is right. You might be better off going with a more direct type of partnership with people that actually downsell to the types of customers that you have, and then go to AWS later when you have something like, especially now they've recently introduced this bundling capability. So I could like bundle my product with somebody else's product together, and then we can co-sell inside a bundle inside AWS, which is actually much more interesting. Because if we're smaller and somebody else is bigger, they could sell and just attach us and it would all transact to the AWS marketplace. So that's interesting, but that's fairly new.
Okay. No, that is interesting. But before, because obviously this is a new thing, what was kind of keeping you in at the time? Was it because we'd spent a lot of time in it already?
There's nothing, once you're in, you're in. So there's nothing like
you just got to crack on.
Yeah. Like if you don't use it, you're still an AWS partner. It really at that point depends on how many leads you put into the platform. If you want to, use their account managers for information or not. And that's if your deal size gets good enough or you have the right motion, if you can get the right credits or you can draw down that person's commit, right? If their commit's drawn down, then it's also a benefit for them.
And was there a point where you're like, because obviously the kind of thread here is about what the ROI might have really been zero at the time. I imagine now it's kind of become a bit of a compounding interesting for you guys. It wasn't really working necessarily in your best favor at the beginning, but now it's like because you put in that long-term work, it's actually started to reap rewards. So would you say the ROI is now coming in the later stage of your partnership rather than the earlier stage? And I guess the mistake here in a way was that most startups can't really afford to wait the compounding interest. Obviously you guys were able to make that work, but would you say now the ROI is starting to hit?
I think we have opportunity for it to start like paying back now. Yes. They have some new programs, this co-sell thing that they have now, this bundling thing. So there are now better opportunities, and also they've fixed the GST thing. So so before people couldn't buy direct on the Amazon marketplace in Singapore as a Singaporean company. The rest of the world they could, but they couldn't click through and check out on the marketplace as a Singapore company, but now they can. So some of those hurdles are resolved.
Get your 20K back now.
Soon.
Soon. Well, 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So you've been in this ecosystem for 3 years, nearly.
About two something. Yeah.
2 something. And really only now the ROI is starting to be, not actually earned, but actually you can now see it. Like you're like, okay, it's coming.
Starting to see, I would say not actualized, but visualized, if you will. Like, but yeah, and it's because of our go-to-market motion and the type of product we sell. So if we sold something that was more of a cloud product, then it would be a completely different story.
Yeah.
But our product sits on top of Google Workspace and we make IT easier for people. So it's not something that necessarily you sell so naturally through an AWS. If we were doing something like a data platform or something like that, it would be a lot different, right?
That's really interesting that you say that, because you said it's not really something you would sell through AWS. Yeah. Our strategy in the early days was to sell through AWS. What do you think at the time, like looking back, was the math that should have been done before signing, the things that we probably should have kind of considered before getting into this?
I think going back to what I know now, like if you don't have a sales team, this is probably not worth it. I think you need to have a dedicated sales team that is like using these resources for their benefit, and it has the time to actually live in that channel and work it. If you don't have the time to live in that channel and work it, then it's really tough to make it work for you.
Yeah. So when you're sort of a founder-led sales team and you're obviously building the product as well, it's actually going to be quite challenging because it's kind of like a full-time job to be basically, it's like AWS ecosystem is your LinkedIn. You've just got to be hunting in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like you register a lead in there, and then you find out who the account manager is for that lead. And then you kind of schedule a meeting, you find out some more information, see how you can maybe work together to do something like this. This is the way it kind of works, right?
Yeah. Now, if there was a founder listening here who's also looking at AWS as an option, what do you think is kind of a 1 hour sanity check that they could run to kind of what they should calculate to see if this actually makes sense for them before signing? Because not everybody can do 2.5 years working a channel, putting 20K up to get to the point you're at. So what could be a 1 hour sanity check, do you think you wish you did back before?
I think talk to somebody who's using the channel now to understand how they sell through it. Once you understand it, then you can decide if that's for you or not, or if you're ready for that or not. Because the investment is not zero. You have to work the channel properly, otherwise it won't work for you. I think that's the biggest thing. Like find somebody that's doing it and hear the ground truth of how it works.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of the time people go in, and I'm not sure if this is the same for you, but you get a bit rosy tinted glasses, like I said at the very beginning, kind of that logo can kind of entice us in. We get rosy tinted glasses, like, for an AWS partner, people are going to trust us. They're going to buy from us really easily. But actually the realities are you have got to work it. It's not, all right, it's a badge that can help give you some credibility because AWS are kind of lending you that credibility because you passed some kind of assessment through that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the sales motion, the hunting, the deal closing is not any easier. Because you said you had ISO and all this stuff. So you already had like security credibility, right?
Yeah. I would say don't chase that logo. You're chasing the AWS partnership as a way to make more sales because they have the right ins in the right places in your type of customer that wants to buy your product and they're happy to buy it through AWS. There are other benefits of selling through AWS Marketplace. Like there's you can choose to do it like a normalized sales agreement and like a terms and services. Yeah. So then the legal teams of the other, and this is always a bigger enterprise deal problem, right? So the legal teams of the other company doesn't have to review your TOS, your custom TOS. It's the normal standardized TOS that they've reviewed a bunch of times through Amazon. Yeah. So there's like this kind of little stuff that can really be time savers in closing a larger deal. But once again, that means that you have to be selling to bigger companies, larger deals.
If you're trying to sell to say the finance industry, like banks, sector or something, you don't
Yeah.
want to go through that whole 3-month legal procurement process. This reduces your sales cycle.
Yes, it definitely can for sure. Yeah.
So if your ICP is that kind of account, it does definitely start to make
Billing
sense.
is also kind of handled for you. So they had billing's handled by AWS, right? So they collect and then they pay you. The fee is quite good. So, like some of that overhead maybe goes away.
Do they cover a little bit of the cash flow shortfalls that can come? For example, I had a big enterprise client back in the day who paid me like 6 months late.
Mhm.
That hurt me. I'm wondering if AWS just pay you. I don't.
AWS will collect. It's very hard to not pay AWS because then you're gonna
They're going to knock on the
they're gonna
door of a
turn off
nice legal
AWS.
team
Yeah.
with a powerful set of suits.
Yeah. So they will collect. They will do their best to do the collection for you, which is ideal.
Yeah.
But I don't think they will pay you until they've collected on their side. But
Okay.
typically,
Okay.
yeah.
But someone like I don't know, DBS are not going to slow pay AWS. They can afford to slow pay startups.
Yes,
Because what's the
exactly.
startup going to do? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That can definitely be a lot of value there. And I was thinking when I was planning this conversation with you, like what are we talking about here? And I was kind of thinking that we're talking about like cycles, like when you're in the first few years of your business, the actions and strategies you pick, those are the cycles that you really can't buy back. Once you're in, you've spent that time or money. And so just wondering what you think going into the AWS route at the early days cost you in time and momentum. Perhaps, like you said, you've got a founding sales-led team, but the AWS requires all that heavy-handed time. Did you lose time on what could have got you more direct customers? What do you think might have been a lost cycle here?
I mean, certainly there was lost time on product development that I could have been doing on something else by dealing with some of the paperwork. There's also something you have to build where the marketplace can automatically onboard your system. So you have to build some infrastructure to let the marketplace buy and onboard and stuff automatically. So there's some definitely engineering time loss where we could have been working on something else.
Yeah.
I would say one thing I've realized as being a startup founder is that you can build the perfect product, but it's very hard. It's still, you got to sell it. So, if nobody knows that you have a perfect product, then they're not going to onboard to the perfect.
Exactly.
And most of our products probably aren't perfect. So the sales thing is really important. Focus on selling direct, and then figure out and finding what channels might actually work, and maybe not dipping your toe into these more involved channels until or you have somebody that's giving you good advice that says, actually, this channel will be great for you because of these reasons, and this investment is worth it. If I would have maybe talked to another founder who's gone through it and asked these questions, maybe I would have made a different decision up front, and done it just a bit later,
Yeah. Oh, do you think because obviously we talked about time you could have, you talked just now about like the learning speed, like learning where to sell, how to sell, like how do we distribute a great product, basically. So you kind of, the cost is, you lose a little bit of that. Do you think you also lost an option for traction? I guess what which loss hurts the most? Cycle of maybe learning or getting some traction, maybe the cash that is then spent on developing the product and features that are required. What loss hurts the most?
I mean, at that point, we already had enough clients to where we were profitable at that point. So we weren't necessarily hurting the most on the cash out. It wasn't awesome. Like, obviously, we would have rather had that around. And nobody wants $20,000 or whatever locked up in where you can't touch it. But so I think it was more just opportunity cost of if we're not doing this, what else could we have done? And it's almost impossible to say if it would have made any difference or not to work on something else at that point. But certainly we know that for the initial phase, the AWS partnership maybe gave us some credibility with clients, but it didn't necessarily close sales and close new sales. So, but I think that like now that we're talking with some bigger partners, we're already in the marketplace. And actually we met them at the AWS marketplace, partner marketplace events. So we are getting some introductions to bigger partners that are willing to work with us, which is good. So there are benefits, there are drawbacks. I think it's definitely a timing thing.
Yeah. And I guess your business would have matured over the last 2.5 years. Your product got stronger, the positioning's got stronger, your messaging's got stronger. So now being at an AWS partner event and you run into a large enterprise, you can actually manage that deal quite well now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, early on, when we were that early, our product was an idea. We had some stuff built, it worked, but it didn't evolve into like the thing that it is today yet. And even today, we're still tuning it a bit, on specific types of product market fit and stuff like that. So, and how to sell it the best, like our product, selling it to the end user maybe is a little bit harder. So going through the partners in the channels actually might be easier. So we're exploring that more heavily now. And that's where the AWS partnership will be much better for us, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But we didn't explore that so much up front. Also because up front, early on, you want to sell direct so you can understand your customers better.
Yeah, you need to. And what do you think of, because you've mentioned it a little bit about like when you speak to somebody who's gone through the program before, but what else do you think a founder should ask before sort of saying yes to a big partner program like AWS? Or there's multiple different types of partner programs out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of partner programs out there. So your question is like, what type of questions should they ask?
Yeah, before saying yes to committing to one of these big partner programs like you.
I think the biggest one is, how does it work? What kind of resources do I need to make this run? What kind of investment besides the time to set it up do I need? Because if somebody else explains to you, okay, so this is how it works. You sit down, you put the lead in, and then you do this, and then you get this back. And they don't try to sell for you. You have to do that, but you can get this information. And right, like and then this is how the deal closes, and what the benefit you get from closing the deal in the partner ecosystem or not, and what you have to pay in terms of commission or not. Like once you kind of understand all of that, and then also what it took for them to onboard technically and time wise, then I think then you make a better decision. Like I saw other people in the program that were struggling through the security questionnaire side because they didn't SOC 2 or ISO yet. So for them, it was like they had to do a bunch of uplift to even get to the security standard that it required. Imagine doing that very early on. I mean, yes, they should be doing that no matter what, but the reality is, right? Like that's
most startups will probably put, unless depending on what industry they're in, will probably put the SOC side of things and the security elements a little bit later on in their.
Yeah, when somebody starts asking them for it, right?
Yeah. What do you think are red flags that a founder should look out for in a partnership program?
I think partnership programs, I think the big ones, the red flag, I don't know if it's a red flag, but the thing you have to watch out for is that they're big for a reason. And you as a small guy is going to get very little attention.
Yeah.
But if you go with more direct partnerships with other people that are doing stuff like you or that are selling onto your customers, then that relationship is a more of a one-to-one with a partner, and you do a bunch of one-to-one relationships, not in an ecosystem necessarily. I think that's a much healthier probably way initially to figure out the motion. Yeah.
Try to avoid these, giant ecosystem partnerships and find.
Yeah, unless your product is literally selling parts of their their thing, then it's of course almost like it makes perfect sense. But if not, if for example, if somebody buys your product and that doesn't that doesn't mean you create 10 new ECS containers or 10 new EC2 instances, then there's no incremental gain for AWS necessarily.
Yeah.
Except for some small compute gain, then maybe it's a little bit harder of a sell.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's the rule of thumb you wish you'd had at the start?
Probably just focus more on the direct sales, founder-led sales, and don't get distracted with all this other stuff. Like focus on you, focus on direct partnerships. Don't get as enticed by the ecosystems, because ecosystems are there for people with the right staff to work them.
Yeah. Honestly, some of the folks that I coach, it's kind of the same thing. It's not necessarily about ecosystems, but it's always about focus.
Yeah.
Like focus is the superpower of a founder. Dan, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And I'm sure founders can learn from.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.